Heidi here from Rain Country. God is good all the time, and I'm here as promised to shoot that standalone video on how to use your fermentation starters to make yeast bread. It's very similar to how you would do regular yeast bread, but is a little closer in final results and the time it takes to sourdough. And really, it basically is sourdough. You're just going about it a different way. So what I have here, and you can see the color of my flowers is faded. This is actually the pink honeysuckle, but the color's faded quite a bit, so it looks more like it's the yellow honeysuckle. So there's one starter, and this is my raisin starter. And I'm finding these two right here I'm liking best for making the bread with. Now, if you're curious as to what a fermentation starter is, I have several videos out, but I want to link you to the most recent one I did because I believe that is my best, clearest, and most thorough video on the fermentation starter, how to make it, how to keep it alive, how to refresh it, and all the many ways that you can use it. So while I've done a couple of videos on doing the bread, I've constantly been working with this process. I get back into it every so often to try to get a better result. And my most recent results, since I've gotten back into this, and it's the only way I've been making bread now for the past couple of weeks, I've been very pleased with, and just trying a few different methods. And this included trying to stretch and fold like you would with sourdough. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to break this down from start to finish on what I have found works best at getting the best results in my bread. I'll be showing you a few video clips and photos along the way. So right here, what I have is, this is my starter made with the raisin fermentation starter, and I'm going to be making this bread up tomorrow, so I want to feed it today. So what I do is I start this about 2 or 3 days ahead of time. In fact, what I do is when the day I go to make the bread, I get another one started, so that by the time we work through that loaf or those rolls, then I can have another one ready to go. So what I do is I just use a mason jar. I fill the jar up about halfway. This is a pint size with whatever fermentation starter I'm using. You can use anything. I've done it with berry. I've done it with dandelion. Had really great results with those as well. And I fill it, so it's about a cup of the starter that I put in there. And then I'll put in anywhere from a half cup to a cup of flour. This one I started off with a half cup early in the morning and then added more throughout the day. But at any rate, for the next 2 to 3 days, I will feed it 1 to 2 tablespoons of flour, just depending on how thick it is, how thick I started out with it. So what I'm going to do with this one, since I'm going to make this tomorrow, I want to show you how bubbly it is I'm going to go ahead and feed it. Oh, I got probably about an 1/8 cup of flour in there, so it's going to be very, very full. And just mix that in. You can see how stretchy that looks. And that's going to be how it should look by the 2nd to 3rd day. And the reason I keep saying 2 to 3 days is a lot of it is going to also depend on how warm it is in your house. The cooler it is, it's going to likely need 3 days. If it's warmer, like more recently, it might only need 2 days. Now, one thing I found is that your raisin fermentation starter is going to most likely take off quicker and you might get better results with it. I just noticed this about raisins, but I found my honeysuckle fermentation starter works really good. In fact, here are the images of the last bread I made using the fermentation starter, where I actually added some seeds to it as well. So let me go ahead and talk about that process. So once I get to the day where I'm ready to make the bread, I start early in the day, especially if it's a colder day. If it's a hot day or you live in a hot climate, you might not need to start as early as I do. So I take the jar, I pour it into a bowl. In that time, if I'm going to add seeds, like I added poppy seeds, chia seeds, and flax seeds, about 1 to 2 tablespoons of each, I put that in there. I put in my salt, about a teaspoon, And then I pour in at least a half cup to a cup of warm water. You just want it warm, like no hotter than 120 degrees, but I don't even try to get it that warm. I just want to get it at least to room temperature, if not a little bit warmer. And I pour that in there. Then I also will add in about 2 tablespoons of melted butter, a cup of flour, mix that in, and then just cover it and let it rest for about an hour. At that time, then I will come back, add more flour, turn it out onto my board, and then start kneading it just like you would any regular yeast bread. And what I find with the starter bread as opposed to a dry yeast bread is that first time that I'm kneading it, it doesn't feel the same as it does throughout the day. But I want to get that started. I then cover it and I set it in the warmest place I can find for about 2 hours. I come back, I repeat that process. I knead it, I add more flour as is needed so it's not too sticky and sticking to my board and sticking to my hands, and I'll just keep doing that. And then I'll cover it, set it in a warm place, which on cooler days, if I'm dehydrating, I'll set it right next to the dehydrator because that's the warmest area. If it's a sunny day, I'll put it right out in the sun, but of course I keep it covered. And then I do it one more time just before I'm ready to shape it into whatever shape I'm going to use. Tomorrow I'm actually going to make rolls out of this for the first time using my fermentation starter and feel pretty good that it's going to work out. I plan on doing butter crescent rolls. So then I'll knead it, flour, and keep going until it's nice and smooth and stretchy. And what I find with each time that I do that, it gets a little smoother, a little stretchier, and it just seems to give me better results than just doing one knead, for however many minutes it takes you to get that real smooth, stretchy consistency as you would use with a dry yeast bread. This particular method does seem to work much better doing at least 3 times of kneading and adding the flour. And then I'll shape it, I'll put it in my pan. If I'm just doing a standard loaf, I just stick it in the pan, add a few slices to it, cover it, and let it rise one more time. Again, it's going to depend on how warm it is in your area, but it's usually going to take about 2 hours. By that point, then I bake it. Now, one of the things I do different, I found also to do differently when it comes to baking the bread, is I turn it down to 350 rather than about 400, which is what I normally use to bake my breads, so that it bakes a little slower and doesn't make too much of a hard crust on the top. This allows it to rise better. If it browns too quickly on top, it's not going to rise as well. So turning it down to 350 and baking it for about 20 minutes, and then coming back, checking it, and if it looks like it needs to brown more, I'll turn the heat up to 400 and maybe bake it another 5 to 10 minutes, just depending. So as long as I give it that chance to rise fully. Now, one thing I want to say about the pan that I almost forgot is that I do like to heat up the pan first. I either set it out in the sun or I set it just on my hot plate here, or even stick it in the toaster oven for a few minutes so it gets nice and hot, and then I butter it well, and then I stick my bread in there. I find I get best results for any bread, no matter what kind of bread I'm making, when I do that. I wanted to say that though usually with my regular yeast bread, I like to add a little coconut sugar to that. So I'm getting the minerals, but also getting a little bit of that sugar that's going to help feed that yeast and help it to get a better rise. I don't do that with the fermentation starter because there's still going to be some sugar left in this, since the fermentation starter is made with whatever produce or scraps of produce, as long as they're organic and either fresh or dried, not frozen, and sugar. And so since there's already, even though it's eaten through some of the sugar, by the time it gets good and bubbly and it's ready to use, there's still going to be some sugar in there. So that is why I don't add any more sugar, no honey or anything like that, when I go to make the bread itself. And the more I do this, the easier I find it. However, the drawback is that you want to be prepared. You want to keep having a new one going and kind of have a good idea planning ahead. And this is where I like dry yeast, because it's like, well, man, I just feel like doing this today. I don't have time to wait 3 days or all day making the bread. I want to do it now. That's where the dry yeast is really nice, because it's going to be a much faster process. But I'm coming to the point right now where I'm really liking this. So I'm going to keep doing this and keep working with it. And if I have any other updates I'd like to share, I will probably put those in either some shorts or some of my this and that videos down the road. But right now I feel very, very pleased, more than ever in the past, with the results I've been getting with my fermentation starter bread. So again, if you want to learn more about how to make that fermentation starter, because it's totally new to you, please make sure you check out that video first, and you'll find it has many other uses, like for making kimchi and all kinds of stuff, natural sodas and more. So please check that out. I think you'll enjoy the fun process of doing this, and how you can just be creative and use whatever you want to make the starter, and then turn around and make your bread. Oh, one more thing I forgot to say is my more recent batches of bread, I've only been using the organic unbleached white flour from Azure Standard, but eventually I'll be going back to trying to blend in some of my home milled flour with the barley and the hard white wheat, because now that I'm getting better results and feel pretty good about it, I'm gonna start incorporating the heavier grains like that and see how well that works for me. And again, that's something I'll keep you updated down the road, but that is also why I like adding the seeds, is so that we can get more nutrition, at least from the seeds. And I just kind of like what it adds to the appearance of the bread anyway. So I hope you enjoyed my video on how to use a fermentation starter to make bread, and thanks for watching. Take care and God bless.